Hello everyone and welcome to the round 18 trade targets and preview live stream for the 2024 season. The rounds keep flying by, doesn't it? Just saying round 18, I was like, oh god, I've only got a few more weeks to try to resurrect what's hopefully a good ranking at the end of the season. But thank you for everyone already in the chat. Good to see you all. Great username here, Big Hits, saying hello guys. BA already with a question. Jake Young, Joe Manu fan. Joey Manu fan, you must be a bit sad with recent developments with old Joey being ruled out for a month with that fractured hand. Disaster, Ponga being named. Yeah, this is the first TLT in a while where I felt like we've had proper, not carnage, you can call it carnage, but it's a pretty big TLT actually what we've had this week. So lots and lots to discuss on that front. Koula season, yeah, obviously Turbo's back, Ponga's back, so two big gun fullbacks. Probably the most popular combination at the beginning of the year, actually. I was thinking about it. Ponga and Turbo were the two of the most owned fullbacks. Very popular combo at the beginning of the year. They're both back. No Harry Grant, not named, as Reese says. Yeah, look, I put my TLT summary together. I didn't even look to think. I just like, yeah, sweet. And then someone said Harry Grant not named. I looked back and I was like, oh, you're joking. You are kidding me. So that screwed me up at hooker position this week. So yeah, look, we'll discuss that. But spoiler alert. Look, I'm not selling Harry, but probably going to make a trade so that I do have a actual playing dummy half. Because 2 weeks in a row of copying a Joe Chan AE, probably not what I exactly planned for. Koula to fullback, of course, is the big news there as well, which is what we expected. Give the stream a like, as Tyler Fratis says. Yeah, absolutely. Give the stream a like. Help me out. Help a brother out. Like the stream now, people show the hair the love from Davey K. Yeah, absolutely. I thought the hair's not looking... Look, it's been looking fine. It's not been looking amazing, but it's not been looking bad. So hopefully you all appreciate it. Do I think Walsh will lose his origin spot? I'm not sure about it. I still think Slater will give Walsh... Like, Ponga being out for such a long time, it's a must-win game. I don't... Like, yeah, Walsh wasn't great, but neither was a lot of the Queenslanders, to be honest. So I don't think Ponga will get back into that Queensland team for Game 3. Maybe next year is a different question there. But yeah, as always, we'll go through all the kind of hot topics of the week. Team lists, we'll talk a little bit more about that, given that there was quite a bit of movement there. Very quickly, I'll just cover off how I went last week. In the end, 1157. It was a green arrow, which was very nice. Up to 3,993. So yeah, going in the right direction, top 4,000. Plan, or the aim was by round 19, round 20 to be in the top 3,000. Could still potentially happen, although this week might be a little bit difficult. And yeah, the trades are starting to run a little bit low. 14 trades at the moment, so don't think that's terrible, but also don't think that's like spectacular. I wish I was on a bit, even like 16, 17, I would have felt a bit more comfortable, but look, it is what it is. We're on 14 trades at the moment. Davey K has got 19 trades left, he says in the chat. Should I just go crazy with trades, not setting the world on fire, but not stinking with the fishes? Yeah, if you've got 19 trades, if you think about it, we're in round 18. We've got, 9 or 10 more rounds of trades. You're pretty much almost at 2 trades each week. So I think in your position, for sure, I'd be happy to trade hard. KP will hit the field at least, Barry reckons. Yes, so Barry Tui, obviously, he actually mentioned earlier than when team list dropped, saying that he expects Ponga to be back. And it does sound as though, like, people are thinking, does maybe Ponga, is he touch and go, in that maybe he doesn't play, and maybe Fletcher Sharp, who was named on the bench, gets a reprieve at starting fullback. But yeah, Barry Tui seems to think that he's been put through his paces pretty hard and seems like he will be ready to go. But yeah, on TLT very quick, so we've touched on a few things already. So yeah, so Ian's saying, do we think, honestly, that KP plays? Yeah, based on what Barry Tui, who is obviously a great source for Newcastle news, he seems to think that Ponga should be right to go. That it kind of sounds as though like they wouldn't name him unless he was right to go. So I'm looking at it as he's been named, so I think he's fine. But yeah, so with the Knights, obviously a few things there is that Ponga is back. Great for Greg Marzhew, who's the most traded in player this week. So we'll definitely talk about him. It does mean Fletcher Sharp's on the bench, so not ideal. I did trade in Fletcher Sharp in the end last week, free up money to get Angus Crichton. Look, he does have a negative break even, but coming off the bench, not great. If you're coming off the bench next week, then look, he's still maybe a warm body to cover round 19. But yeah, eventually he will need to be moved on and upgraded if he's going to continue a bench role. Round 19 must-have players. He'll probably talk about that a little bit more in detail next week. But I mean, there's a few who I can think of already as must-haves. On the other TLT news, so Manly probably is another big one. So Koula has been named at fullback. Turbo at centre, Lehigh, Hopewadi on the bench. So interesting, both Fletcher Sharp and Hopewadi on the bench. So maybe someone saying earlier in the chat, is that a cause for concern for Koula? I'm not sure. I think they maybe just felt like Hopewadi's been good enough, maybe not to drop him out of the entire team. But I would think that with Koula at fullback, he will play the game there. But yeah, it could be another week of being fluid with your trades and your team setup. So maybe you need to just keep an eye on things, especially Koula is being pretty heavily traded and considered this week as well. But get Ruben Garrick's also named on the bench as well. Turbo for dual going to slap. Yeah, look, Turbo won't get dual status this season because the last set of dual changes have already happened. So the likes of Beau Fermor got dual second row forward centre wing. Cody Walker got halfback 5'8". A couple of others have also got similar. Turbo's not going to get that this year. If he plays 3 games at centre this year, the thing is, it's not even a guarantee for next year because it's not like Supercoach have got discretion over choosing positions. If Turbo is named at if Turbo plays all preseason at fullback next year, as we expect plays fullback, there's nothing to suggest that he would be eligible to be picked next year at centre because they have to go next year by what they think players will actually play in that position. If they don't think Turbo's playing at centre, they probably won't even give him centre dual. So, yeah, sorry to be the party pooper, but Turbo might not have dual next year either. But if it happens, he will be straight in my team, that's for sure. Elsewhere on Storm also is pretty big news. So obviously Harry Grant not named again, rested. He's going to miss next week anyway with a bye. But yeah, that's rough this week for Grant owners, and myself included. Just with the what's it called? Tigers matchup. I figured that was a great matchup for Grant. But anyway, what can you do? No Harry Grant. But Pappy's been named on the bench. Pappy's been named to start. Apologies. Su'Afalongo's been named on the bench. That one definitely does feel a bit more like Pappy could drop out and Falongo could stay in. But Falongo's got like a 90 break even. So definitely I think if he still is named on the bench, look to trade because I think he's going to start leaking cash and he's made some good money. If he gets a run and starts against the Tigers, I think you keep. For West Tigers themselves, so Ruben Porter has been dropped out. John Bateman has come into that team. So probably what a few people myself were thinking back in round 16 was that with Bateman coming back sooner, maybe that means Porter's not a guarantee for round 19. And it looks kind of like that's happened. Jacob Kraz back on the wing for the Dogs, I'm happy about as well. Not much happening at the Warriors. Terrell May bench for the Roosters, potentially a sit candidate this week, just given that they're going to have a full contingent of forwards all playing their normal minutes. Zach Lomax is back. Elsewhere for Eels, what have we got? We've got Rabbitohs pretty much the same, except Murray's been named on the edge. Kolomatangi in the middle. I wouldn't be shocked to see a swap potentially there, but one to monitor. Atkinson on the wing for Sharks. Sione Katoa out with a concussion this week. Is Jake Tungo? I'm going to guess. I haven't looked into this. I don't know Jake Tungo at all, but he could be Isaac Tungo relative. He's been named on the wing in place of Mike Acevo, who is out for 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring. Matt Arthur still on the bench. You got Brimson at number 6 for Titans, so he's back in, but Keanu Kini does stay at fullback, so interesting to see what happens with Jaden Campbell. He's currently out injured anyway, but yeah, I mean, people weren't looking to buy him anyway this week, given that he's out. Not much doing at Brisbane and Penrith. Both all of their Origin players are back. Same with Cowboys, and KO Weeks at fullback still. So it's kind of a wrap up, I guess, of TLT for this week. Grant to Cook, Jason is asking. Grant to Cook is tempting. Look, I put a poll up on the chat as well, so I'm going to have to honour that. There's been 99 votes, but it's kind of helping decide the run order. Majority of people want to talk about Manu first. Hookers are actually fourth, but not that far away. Manu's running far ahead at 54%. You got 2RS at 17%, Hynes at 16%, and then Hookers at 13%. So if you want to talk about Harry Grant straight away, although that really does make me sad. When I saw that, I was like, oh, you're joking me. Anyway, it is what it is. Anyway, we'll give the chat a little bit longer to make those votes in terms of running order and stuff. But one thing I did want to talk about quickly, I think I promised this on Sunday, was looking at, we're at round 18 now, so we've had a good chunk of the season, pretty much like 2/3. So let's have a look at, over the season, who are the teams that we can actually look to target, and how has that trended based on, overall for the season, but then also first half of, rounds 1 to 8, but then also rounds 9 to 17. Because I like to look at this because we might have certain conceptions about team. This probably feeds more to the whole Nicho Hynes debate because, a lot of people are saying, well, Titans match up at home, you've got to get him in. I haven't loved what I've seen from him so far. I'm thinking, are the Titans actually as bad as they have been at the beginning of the season? So what I've just pulled up here is, and apologies guys, there's lots of questions coming in, which, look, I appreciate, but we'll try to get to more specific questions as we hit the certain sections. But I thought it'd be good to cover off this first, and this might help feed then into when we're looking at players to buy. If we talk about draws and things, this definitely feeds into it. So over the season, teams that have conceded the most, and this is all SuperCoach points, so it's more relative to SuperCoach. So the top 6 in that who have conceded the most. So you've got Rabbitohs, Parramatta, West Tigers, Newcastle, Titans, and Canberra. Warriors then in 7th, and then Dolphins in 8th. So that's kind of your top 8 of conceding points. So no surprise if you look towards the bottom of that list in terms of the least, the best defensive teams, don't concede as many SuperCoach points. Roosters, Panthers, Bulldogs, we now know are a very good defense. Melbourne, Broncos, Sharks. Nothing really too surprising about that set of players, about that set of teams over the season. It gets a bit more interesting, and to be honest, the first half of the season also seems kind of aligned to what we're thinking because, Rabbitohs were pretty poor for the beginning of the year. They were number 1. Titans were also number 2. Newcastle, Canberra, Dragons, Parramatta, Manly, and then the Warriors. That's the top 8 of conceding the most points in SuperCoach for the first half of the current season. So rounds 1 to 8. Where things get interesting is probably where you're seeing more recent trends. So looking at the last kind of 7 to 8 weeks, so round 9 to round 17, what teams actually are in this pool of teams that have conceded the most SuperCoach points. So West Tigers is number 1. So they were already, first half of the year, they were actually not in the top 8, but they are for the most recent few rounds. And I think we've seen that with a few big blowout scores, probably that Dragons game and last week's Roosters games feeding into that. Parramatta are 2nd. So Parramatta are up there, they've been pretty weak defensively, so I look at them as a good matchup for your attacking players. Dolphins in 3rd. Now this is interesting because, the Dolphins we know had a really good start to the season in terms of draw. They had a really easy run. And so they were in the bottom 8 in terms of conceding points. Sorry, top 8 in terms of conceding SuperCoach points. Like they were pretty good, but they're now 3rd. This Jeremy Marshall-King injury news, he looks to be out for 8 to 10 weeks. Does also feel a bit more like, they're a team that I can look at and not be so afraid of. I still think that they'll concede plenty of points and you can definitely roll out your attacking players against them. And you got Warriors in 4th, so they obviously have crept up. Obviously they had that shellacking at the hands of the Titans, so they look a little bit more easy of an opponent. Raiders are still up there. Newcastle, Sharks, actually surprisingly getting up there. And Manly. And the other team that was also interesting was the Broncos. So if you look at the entire season, they were the 5th best defense for SuperCoach points conceded, but they're actually like middle of the table in the last 8 weeks. So I think this definitely is true for during this origin period when they've got a lot of their big guns either fatigued or rested. Broncos does not scare me as much as a matchup. What is also interesting, you've got a team like the Rabbitohs. So they were 1st in points conceded for rounds 1 to 8. They're now like not even in the top 8. So they're actually obviously in an improving phase at the moment, which I think the eye test supports that. Titans and Dragons, funnily enough, are actually like if you look at this between rounds 9 to 17. So you got Roosters, Bulldogs, Panthers, and Melbourne. No shockers for those being the 4 best defensive teams from SuperCoach point of view. After that, you've got the Dragons, and then you've got the Titans. So they've actually been pretty good in the last few weeks. So the reason I wanted to mention this when I saw this was that, the whole Nicho Hynes things, do you absolutely have to prioritize him this week? If you look at what the numbers saying, in the last 8 rounds, the Titans have actually been much better in defending from a SuperCoach points perspective. So just wanted to flag that because, let's say if you're a Jerome Hughes owner, West Tigers are number 1 in this list. Do you really want to sell Jerome Hughes versus the West Tigers, who've been the most leaky, to Hynes, who probably isn't looking as good on the eye test, to a team that hasn't been as leaky? So just wanted to mention a few of those things. And hopefully just keep this in mind when you're looking at your trading targets, who you're looking to sell, because we always want to keep an eye on, strength of difficulty, strength of schedule. So this is what I wanted to just feed in into the analysis a little bit. And also probably should hopefully help when you're considering, because people are selling the likes of Sam Walker, Jerome Hughes to Nicho Hynes. People are looking at selling like a Joey Manu. We can look at what games he's got left at the end of the season. I can tell you Parramatta and the Dolphins, and I believe the Tigers may also all feature in that. So anyway, we'll get to all of that. I'm going to end the poll now on the run order. We'll start with Manu for sure, and then we'll be pretty fluid with the others because the others are all pretty similar to each other. But boys, put a heart in the chat to hold Manu. Okay, all right. So yeah, hopefully you all enjoy that a little bit. We'll get on to the first big topic, which is of course Joey Manu. So yeah, it's been reported, fractured hand. He is out for 4 weeks. And so that means he would miss round 18, 19, 20, and 21. So he was already going, assuming you're already going to hold, he was going to miss round 19 anyway. So what you're missing out on is the Dragons, Melbourne, and Manly. Also, what I should say is that all the color shadings I've got in my slides today, I haven't adjusted for what I just showed because I just wanted to pull that up, but it would have taken me too long to update everything here before the stream started. So yeah, just make sure you keep that in mind. But with Manu, so he's going to miss the Dragons, Melbourne, Manly, and then a bye. If he comes back in round 22, that's the Dolphins, who, as I've shown before, they were like the 3rd or 4th worst defending points in the last 8 rounds. So you'd say good matchup. A bye in round 23 is a little bit awkward. Then you got Parramatta in round 24, which I think looked really, really good. Titans, look, I've got that as green shaded here, but they've actually been a little bit better. But objectively, you still look at that and think, yeah, look, the Titans are not a bad matchup at all. Raiders have been quite high in that leaking points for Supercoach point of view, so great matchup there. And then the Rabbitohs, so of course that kind of rivalry game between the Roosters and the Rabbitohs there. So definitely the period that Manu is going to come back will be the better part of his remaining draw for sure. Like from round 22 onwards, yeah, if you ask me, that's when I'd prefer to own Manu. Then it would be probably in the next 4 weeks. So he's 624k. He's got a break even of 86. And so the question is, yeah, are people thinking of holding him because they know that he's going to come back to this really good draw? Or do you just sell because centering position is pretty stacked and you want to maybe try to free up some money, or you want to target some other guns? Really is team dependent, I think, on this. So, it's kind of a cop-out answer, but it really does come down to your team. If you can afford to keep him in your centers and not have to rely on him, and you've got enough depth, I think there's perfectly good argument to hold him because yes, he's a lot of money at 624k, but there are some cheaper centers out there that you can pick up that maybe you can sell the likes of a Fa'alongo or an Armstrong or maybe a Fletcher Sharp in a week or two to get to like a Marzhew or a Mulitalo or a Koula. They're not that expensive and they can be playable in the period that Manu's out, and then maybe when Manu comes back, you can put him straight back into your 17. Also depends on how many trades you have as well. So, Tyler's saying here, saving trades is so important. So many injuries every week still, absolutely. If you're in a position where you're I think if you're if you're in 11 or 10 trades or less, I would definitely think of trying to hold on to Manu because of the good run at the end of the year, he might be someone that you want to eventually bring back into your team. So if you sell him now and then bring him back, that's 2 trades. That's a fifth of your remaining trades just on one player. If you think about it like that, then you might be thinking, oh geez, okay, maybe I do need to hold on here. I feel like if you've got 12, 13 plus trades, which I would maybe say is the majority, then I would think he is most likely a sell. So for my own team, for example, I think I'm probably likely going to, I'm leaning more to selling Manu because that 624k, it's not like it's cheap, but also it means if I can go, there's a few guys in that 400 to 500k in the centers, you can trade down to him and you can actually free up some decent money. And with the likes of Fletcher Sharp now being less of a good thing in terms of cash gen, you might need to make sure you free up funds to be able to upgrade and move on guys like that in your team. So that's kind of what I'm getting at with thinking that I might sell Manu. Also, the thing with Manu, I also think, yes, the draw for the run home for the Roosters is looking good, but the last few weeks, Manu hasn't actually been that impressive because I know a lot of people, myself included, brought him in round 13 in the same week that everyone was getting Teddy, but then he got called in for Origin. And he scored 50 at fullback, and then he's kind of gone he got 48 last week, got a low 60s the week before. He's been okay, but nothing amazing. And so I think there's actually, it's not like you're selling, if let's put a hypothetical here. I don't know, if you're selling a Dave Fafita. If Dave Fafita was out for 4 weeks, but let's assume Fafita's at 624k, because of the lack of replacements in the second row, you might think of, I'm just going to hold on. Center doesn't feel like that. It always feels like you can easily move on to any other good option. So I'm happy to sell Manu, I think, especially if your trades is not looking too bad. People are saying the likes of Manu to Nico Hynes. Look, I think if you can do that, that's like via duels. That's a very, very good trade. Like you've used about 120k, you're locking in Hynes, maybe getting him a week ahead of when a lot of other people will get him. So I like that kind of move. So that's what Harold TB09 is saying. Is that Tom Brady 09? I'll have to double check that. Joshua Hughes is saying, look at Marzhew with Ponga back, ... Is Manu a definite sell if you're purely a head-to-head player? So remember, if you're in head-to-head, round 23 is the first week of your finals. So you'll miss all of your Roosters players for that week. And so again, head-to-head focus here. If you feel like you're well and truly going to get a spot in the top 8 and don't need to worry about, you can save some trades maybe, then I'd say, look, you can hold on to him because round 24, 25, 26 will be really good for you for head-to-head. But if you're like, you need to use trades to scrape into your 8, then I'd say, yeah, look, probably sell them. So I'm going to give a bit of a cop-out answer there, but I do think it's related to where you're sitting on your head-to-head ladder. But yeah, at the moment, I'm leaning towards selling Manu just purely because I think I do need to maybe raise some funds, and there are a couple of cheaper guys that I can move down to be able to move on the likes of a Fletcher Sharp. So that's my thoughts on Manu. So in terms of the replacements, we'll talk a lot about the likes of Marzhew, Mulitalo, just sticking to more of the gun category at the moment, the more expensive guys. So a few people in the chat, Tour Pro is asking here, Manu to Karaz, ? I do really like Karaz as a run home season keeper. I do think, we always kind of raise this every few weeks. Who are your top 4, top 5 center wing? I'll just say now, if you don't own Dom Young, I think he is absolutely the number one. Scored a big score last week. We know his ceiling. He's got like 3 or 4 big hundreds already this year. The Roosters are just firing on all cylinders. One thing I'll quickly circle back to this because we focus more on the points conceded. But if you actually look at this graphic here, so I did actually look at also the points scored over the season. Roosters are number 1 for SuperCoach points scored per game on average for the entire season. And they were between rounds 1 to 8. Having a quick look here, they were second. And then between rounds 9 to 17, they're first and well clear. Like 970 points per game is what they're averaging in terms of SuperCoach points per game. The next best in that same span is the Panthers on 916. So like the Roosters for sure attack-wise, yeah, definitely I think Manu to Dom Young is the move to make if you don't already own Dom Young. That would be just where I would make that particular move. Assuming you already own Dom Young, the few other gun options that you can consider, you've got Garrick who plays 19, you've got Origin guys like Brian To'o, Lomax, and then you've got Karaz who doesn't cover around 19, but I'd say is a pretty good thing. Then you do also have some cheaper options who I've listed below. Brian, all kind of averaging around 64. They're more in the pod territory. You've got Brian Kelly, Bradman Best, Jesse Raymond, and then Daniel Tupou. So Kelly, I definitely don't prefer as much as some of these other guns. I just think his ceiling is just not as much as some of these other guys, and center is such a high upside position. Bradman Best has scored a couple of tons, but I do find he is a bit inconsistent, and I think he benefited a bit last week from, he got those 2 runaway tries, which added to his score. So, he is very, try reliant. I guess KP being back is good for him, but I do remember, last year, so this season so far, he's averaging 64, 62, Bradman Best. Last year with Ponga, he was averaging 60. I do feel like, look, I haven't got any numbers to back this up, but I feel like with KP coming back, it's probably better for Marzhew, but not maybe so much as for Bradman Best. So with Bradman Best, I'm looking at Marzhew as he's cheaper, by 130k than Bradman Best. Probably would prefer him as a Knights center. Jesse Raymond, he scored pretty well last week. Someone actually in the chat is asking what is his base power average. I haven't got that in front of me. I know his base average is about 37. I would have to think that based on that, he's probably got a base power average of 46, 47. I'm actually going to quickly pull it up on NRL SuperCoach Stats. 49.73 is his base power average. So pretty high. So yeah, with Raymond, he's one of those guys who's very solid, but again, thinking ceiling. The ceiling guys, in my opinion, are the likes of a Karaz, Lomax, Garrick, and a To'o. I think Manu to Karaz, I really like that move. Karaz and the Dogs do have a very good run home for the rest of the year. So they don't really have... Their toughest matchup on paper is probably the Broncos in round 21. But even then, we looked at the Broncos. The last 8 weeks, they haven't been crash hot in terms of defending SuperCoach points. So even a Karaz back on the wing this week as well, I really do like him as a trade. Brian To'o's got the appeal because he's got the big negative break even coming into this week. My big fear with To'o is that it does feel a little bit like now or never because of the break even, but we just saw that the Panthers rested their origin players. I think they'll continue to do that even in round 20 as well. Round 21 onwards is very good. You know, you're looking at Dragons, Knights, Parramatta, Melbourne, Raiders, Rabbitohs, and then the Titans. Like, it is actually a really good run home for the Panthers. But I do feel like when Cleary comes back, it's probably not as good for To'o because he's been benefiting from Luai playing at halfback and Cole at 5'8". Like, if you look at his scores, and apologies again, no real number behind this, but if you look at when did Cleary play this year, so he played his big minute games in round 1, 2, 3, and then round 8. So 1, 2, 3, round 8. So if you look at To'o, what he did in those weeks, 45, 49, 124, and then a 98. So he's got 2 low scores, 2 really big scores. I think that is kind of the nature of To'o when Cleary's back, because we saw Isaac Tonga do very well when Cleary's back. I think with To'o, you could get a bit frustrated, maybe. That's all I'll say. Like, you could get these 40s, but you could also get these big 90, 100s. And, you know, they're pretty fluid with their wingers. Like, he can sometimes play left, sometimes play right. I just think price is also really expensive. 776.7k with that potential of resting. Like, Karaz himself is very expensive as well at 735, but he's got a very similar base power. And I do think Karaz is more likely, probably not going to get you that big 100 plus, but he's got like an average of 90 on the right wing so far this year. So I think Karaz is perfectly good, less chance of restings, and especially even something like around 27. You know, Bulldogs are in the top 8. I can see that they would easily keep playing their guys all season long to try to stay in the top 8. Whereas with the Panthers, you know, they have rested players in round 27. So I think Karaz is I prefer Karaz to To'o. I think I mentioned this to a couple of people who asked me this last week. I do think if you are budget capped, I still like Garrick this week as a trade-in. He's got a high break even of 114. I like the matchup this week against the Cowboys. If not, you can definitely wait a week, and then maybe you can you can hold on to Manu for a week, and then you can sell to Garrick next week because he covers 19, covers 20, which is going to be very important. And he's got the Titans in that week. And then he's got the Roosters in 21. After that, Manly's run is also pretty decent. So I also do like Garrick. Garrick would probably be in my top 5 or 6 centre wings for the run home. Thinking out loud of what my top 4 or 5 would be, Dom Young for sure is going to be in there. I would say Karaz would be in there. Garrick would be in there for me as well. I think To'o would be in there too. But it's just the restings and the price, which makes me a little bit less keen on him this week. Val could be in there. So with Val and the Cowboys, they do have a tough run for the rest of the year. A few tough matchups like the Bulldogs, Sharks, Broncos, and Melbourne. But they've got a lot of good home games. That's probably the thing that they have in their favour. So he's got Manly, Bulldogs, Sharks, Broncos, Raiders, and Melbourne. They're all home games. So you can at least argue that he's got home ground factor in his tough matchups. So I also don't mind Holmes. Would I get Holmes over Karaz? I mean, look, to be honest, I would still take Holmes over Karaz. I just think a goal kicker is much better, and the Cowboys still are a good attacking team. So I would probably take Holmes over Karaz, but of course, you've got the risk of him not being able to back up from Origin games. So if you want to avoid that risk, then yeah, Karaz would be the one I'd go to in terms of the guns, but Dom Young for me rules above, I guess, all of them. Quick Lomax, I haven't actually considered. He's also got a negative break even. I've put some more detailed numbers into this in other streams, but basically he's averaged like 57 against tough opposition and about 88 or 85 against easy opponents. Just looking at his run home, even the next few weeks, like Roosters this week is tough. Misses round 19, and then he misses round 20, and then he comes back to Penrith and Melbourne. I know he's got a negative break even, but like that big 180s or 170 score will drop out eventually, and he could, like, even then Bulldogs in round 23, we established the Bulldogs are a good defense. Like Lomax, realistically, I think he'd be maybe a target for me in round 24. And so this is another thing you can also think about. Like if you want to sell Manu, and you want to buy him back, by round 24, you might want to buy back a Lomax instead. So again, quality replacements is really good at the center position. But otherwise Garrick for round 19, talking of like round 19 must-haves, I would think Garrick is close to that in my opinion, just because he's a goal kicker and the Knights like aren't defensively amazing themselves. Continuing on the vein of center replacements for Manu, because I know this is obviously a big talking point for this week. It's the likes of Marzhew, Mulitalo, Koula. I've got Isaac Tungo and Alex Johnson in here as well, just to be fair. But I know the most popular three of those five is Marzhew. He's the most traded in player this week currently. You've got Koula, and who's been named at fullback, and then you've also got Mulitalo. So yeah, actually looking at the I haven't considered Will Price, guys. I know a few people have mentioned him in the chat already. Yes, he had a good debut, but 345k also feels like it's not an amazing price. He did have to score a try with a line break to get that score of 60. I'd like to see a little bit more out of it before I go down to him, I think, whereas with Marzhew, at least you've got a bit more of a proven thing, I guess, with him. So on these cheaper guys, so a few extra stats that I wanted to pull together just to hopefully help you guys out. So with Mulitalo, so far this year, with an average of 74 with Trindle, although he had a low score last week, and I have to give credit to, I think it's Tim Williams from Playbook for this one, because I read some analysis, but with Mulitalo, there actually seems to be like a correlation between his down scores, not necessarily so much with Trindle, but with Iro. So when Iro has been in the team, it's Mulitalo who's actually not had as good of his scoring as it was at the beginning of the season. So having a quick look here, so Kale Iro, he played in round 4, and then he missed round 5 with a bye. So basically he came into the team in round 4 onwards, Kale Iro. So rounds 1 to 3, Mulitalo scored a try, and no try, and then he scored a double. He did score a couple of doubles in round 6 and 7, but then from round 8 onwards, he only has scored 2 tries. And in that time, Iro, you probably would say, has maybe taken more of a role in that team. I do think there is a little bit of maybe a correlation of Iro potentially affecting Mulitalo, and Iro's not going anywhere in that team now. I think that's been established. So part of me thinks also Mulitalo, yes, he had a really good start to the year, and he's had a good average with Trindle, but Sharks do have a bye in round 20, and that's going to be a really, really difficult week to cover. The draw for the run home is really good, but part of me does think maybe Mulitalo doesn't quite get back up to that 70 plus average we saw at the beginning of the season. And he's done this in previous seasons as well, where a lot of people jump on him. I think maybe last year or the year before, he had a hot start, no one had him, and then people look at him when he gets a bit cheaper in price. But he can have these spells where he gets a little bit frustrating to own. So I'm getting a little bit less keen on Mulitalo. I still think he's still a perfectly fine trade-in because of the really good run for the rest of the season. And I know we shouldn't just think about 1 week, but round 20 is going to be a very, very difficult week. So if you're a little bit concerned about that, I prefer Marzhew on that side of things, because Marzhew at least does play round 20, and it's round 20 against the Broncos. And I think Kevy's established that he's pretty consistent at resting his Origin guys post-Origin. So you could be looking at a Broncos team without some of their Origin players, and Newcastle really aren't going to get affected by Origin. I know a few people are thinking, is Ponga a chance for Origin 3? I don't really see it. I think Walsh is going to continue in Game 3 and have his spot. So I think Marzhew's next 3 not bad, with Raiders, Manly, and then the Broncos. Does have the bye round 21, and then it's Penrith round 22. I think the run home is pretty decent as well, though. You've got Tigers, Sharks, Rabbitohs, Titans, and Dolphins. So there's a few good matchups in there. And I guess the thing with him is that it's KP back is what Marzhew was, it's why Marzhew was so good last year, right? So if you look at some of his numbers from, so he's got over 30 base in 4 of his last 5 games. So his base is a little bit up, because his season average, I think, for base stats, and I'm going to have a quick look at it here. I think it was around 27 or 30, if I'm not mistaken. He's got a base average of 29. So his base it's not that much up, but it's a little bit up. He had a base of 36 last week. So we know Marzhew's a tackle buster. So that's all good stuff. Ponga, they've only played 3 games together this year, Marzhew and Ponga. In those games, Marzhew scored 59, 46, and then 40. So nothing spectacular. But I do remember that at the first, I sold Ponga in round 3 before his first price change. And Marzhew wasn't in the team round 3 to round 5. But in those weeks in the first 2 weeks when Marzhew went 59 and 40, Ponga went 50 and 45. So Ponga himself wasn't having great Supercoach output, or in game having a great showing as well. And then round 6 when Marzhew and Ponga played together, that was against the Roosters, so it's a pretty tough matchup. So I think we can't really draw too much on what we've seen so far this year with what Marzhew's done when KP's in the team. I think we have to look a little bit more to last season, when basically KP was on fire and Marzhew was just a super coach. Like, he was elite. Like, he averaged 77 last year. So I definitely understand the appeal with him. With a negative break even at 505k, you free up like 140k to go down from Manu to him. Someone's making a good point about that Broncos matchup in round 20. Kev might not be able to rest some of the Origin players because they need to keep winning to make the 8. I have kind of seen, you could make the same argument this week though. Away to the Warriors, Warriors haven't been playing amazing. He could have easily maybe have played them. He could have played Reece Walsh maybe. Carrigan and Haas, I'd understand. But anyway, that's going a little bit more probably into the nuts and bolts of it. But I think Marzhew's got a really good run for the run home overall. I think it's fairly good. Penrith and Sharks have been the two tough ones there. And yeah, with KP back, we saw last year how good he was for him. So I think it's a very tempting trade in. I can understand completely why he is number 1 most traded in. Someone in the stream chat was earlier asking, Koula or Marzhew. So, to be honest, my biggest concern with Koula is, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. The biggest concern is how long do we think Turbo's playing at centre for? Because, people bought Koula not that long ago when he was playing at fullback with the hope of, sweet, we saw last year what he did when he played at fullback. Because his 3 fullback games in the last 2 seasons, 79, 125, 188. Amazing. And his base numbers were better than when they're playing at centre. So his base average this season is 28, but his games at fullback were 33, 35, and 33 in base. So his base numbers are up at fullback, so he gets his hands on the ball more, he's got a higher floor, gets more potential for attacking stats. The biggest concern I have, though, is what happens when Turbo goes back to fullback. Koula will go back to the centres, and then you're probably getting a guy who's going to be going back to averaging mid-40s. And so while the price is really, really tempting, I just feel like we've got uncertainty on how long Turbo is going to be at fullback for. At least with someone like Marzhew or Mulitalo, the role is unquestioned. It's they're playing on the left wing, and that's it. There's no questions about it. So I understand it's pronounced like Koula. Okay, so yeah, I understand the Koula appeal, but for me, it's a bit of a risk just knowing that Turbo is probably likely to come back at fullback at some point. Let's assume Turbo gets maybe 3 games at centre. So apologies. He gets Cowboys, Newcastle, and Titans at fullback. To be fair, those are 3 really good games. I can't knock it, but it does feel like to me when we're running low on trades, ideally I'd want to be trading in a guy who I can more or less keep for the season. I just don't think he really fits the bill when there's uncertainty about when he'll eventually go back to the centres. So personally, he's not for me. I would prefer a Marzhew to him. Shout out to ShifterPod in the chat who's saying he sold Marzhew 2 weeks ago, 87. Nothing amazing. But I can understand the appeal with a negative break even. And it just feels like at the price, we know there's always been a good Supercoach player in him. It just hasn't quite worked out for him. But I kind of look at it as you kind of need to forget about what's happened so far. You just have to predict what's going to happen moving forward. And the prediction is that, look, I don't know what he's priced at 505k, maybe something in the 50s. Do you think he's going to average more than 50 for the rest of the year? With KP in that team, I would think yes. And he's got a negative break even, so it does feel like a good week to trade him in. And so, yeah, I definitely prefer him to Koula. And I also do prefer him now a little bit to Mulitalo as well. Just because I think if you load up on the Sharks too much, round 20 could be a very difficult week. If you feel like you can manage that, then great, because the Sharks do have probably the best draw for the rest of the year. Not really considering Alex Johnston or Isaac Tongo at the moment. I just think with Tongo, need to see Cleary back in before I even look at him. He could be below 400k at that point. And then Alex Johnston, I just haven't really been seeing too much out of him all season long. So yeah, not too keen myself on AJ.
But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the whole Manu situation and on Marzhew thing. So I'm ranking out of Marzhew, Mulitalo, and Koula. I'm ranking it Marzhew, Mulitalo, and Koula. That's probably my three in preference. Probably the next big talking point of the week. So there's a few questions coming in about Fletcher Sharp. I haven't actually got anything prepped on Fletcher Sharp, so I might just answer that question very quickly. So yeah, Fletcher Sharp, obviously not great that he's been benched. Look, he's 313k. He's got a negative 34 break even. Coming off the bench, look, he might get 10 points. If he gets 10 points, let's have a quick look at that in the price change calculator. Fletcher Sharp. If he scores, let's give him 15 points, because why not? If we give him 15 points, he'll go up another 40k, and then that's pretty much it. So by that point, he's already made like over 100k. So yeah, he would have made 150k. So at the end of the day, like, it's not the worst trade in, of course. But yeah, with Fletcher Sharp, like, I'm keeping him for this week, but I probably won't play him in my 17. Next week, let's see what happens. Is he coming off the bench again? If he's coming off the bench again next week and his break even's like sub 20, I'll probably just keep him again for the warm body for round 19, because it is a major bye week. And then after that, yeah, I'll look to upgrade him. But look, if I see good signs out of Turbo or Ponga, who both play next week, then maybe try to do something to get to Fletcher Sharp to one of them. Could be the go there as well. But for this week, I'm just going to keep Fletcher Sharp. On Nico Hynes, so I haven't actually seen that many questions about Nico Hynes, surprisingly. So, but if you've got questions about Hynes, drop them in now since we're talking about him. But yeah, the big question is, do you get Nico Hynes this week or do you wait a week? And then people are saying, do you sell Sam Walker or Jerome Hughes? Would you do Galvin or Plath to Nico? So Nico Hynes for sure, I think, will be must own. If you're talking must have round 19 players, Nico will be in that list for sure for round 19. It's just great matchup against the Tigers at home. It's a game that you just need to have him because he will be mass captained. This week against the Titans, I know I've got them shaded as green, but as I showed before, they've actually been pretty good defensively from a Supercoach point of view in the last kind of 8 rounds. Still has a break even of 118, so there is still some potential that he does go down a little bit in price. The main reason I'm not overly too keen on jumping on him, especially if you're selling Sam Walker or Jerome Hughes, is that those two guys themselves have got really good matchups. Like, Jerome Hughes has got the best matchup you could think of from a Supercoach point of view, which is the West Tigers. Sorry, Tigers fans. They're ranked. The West Tigers are ranked 5th in terms of conceding points to opposition halfbacks. The Dragons are actually 4th on that list, and this is for the season. And then the Titans are 10th. So just purely looking at matchup versus halfbacks as well, I think Sam Walker and Jerome Hughes have got better matchups than Nico Hynes this week. It might sound crazy to say. And look, all of this, Hynes could easily come out and score 120 and I miss out on those points. But at least he won't change in price. Yes, you're right. That should say Wishart, not SJ. Yeah, that's just my bad. Done. This is the beauty of on the fly stream updates. So yeah, for me, I'm not like Jerome Hughes. Definitely not. If I don't own Hughes, but I would 100% be keeping Jerome Hughes. I would not be selling him this week for Hynes. Even next week, round 19 is a bit more of a question mark, depending on when Munster is back. Next week makes much more sense just because, Hynes is playing and Hughes isn't. Sam Walker, I can understand a little bit, but look, he scored, 61 last week. His goal kicking wasn't great. I think if he was kicking goals a bit better, he would have probably gone closer to the 70s. And then, he ended up on 56. So if he got his goal kicking boots on last week a bit better, he probably would have been on the mid 60s, closer to 70. And then I think it's less of a question maybe in people's minds as to whether they would sell Sam Walker to Hynes. Great matchup this week at home to the Dragons. I own Walker and I'll be keeping, and I don't think I'll be doing Sam Walker to Hynes this week. And that's probably, I guess that's my advice for others out there. For people who are selling Galvin or Plath, I actually honestly think Galvin's just close to a season hold at this point. Like, he's just been awesome, scoring points against even tough opposition. Even Plath as well, I think, is safe. Plath is actually on the bye this week. So I think if you're looking to get Nico and these are one of the two guys that you're looking to sell, then yeah, I'd probably sell Plath, I guess, this week, just because he's on the bye. And I think Galvin's probably shown a little bit more of a ceiling than Plath has this year. As much as the draw is amazing for Nico, could you anti-pod him and hold Sam Walker because there is no confidence in Hynes at the moment and his performance hasn't been eye-opening? Yeah, like the only issue I have with that, again, it's similar to the thing with Manu, is that there's this period from round 19 to round 22, 23 where, Sam Walker will have a bye, Melbourne, Manly, and then the Dolphins, and then another bye. I just think, apart from that Dolphins matchup, I don't love him in that period. Whereas Nico in that period's got a bye, but then he's got the Cowboys, Rabbitohs, and I think he's got the Titans again. So I definitely prefer him during that period. So I think even if I don't do Sam Walker out this week, I'll probably do it next week for Nico. And even if, I just don't think Nico, it doesn't need much for him to score well. Like even last week, he had chances where he could have got some extra attacking stats and he would have been probably closer to like a 70. And then, maybe more people are looking to go for him in that particular week. With Tyron Wishart, I think he's just a case of give him this week against the Tigers and then sell next week to Nico. Probably how I'd play it. Cody Walker, I actually will probably just keep Cody Walker because Parramatta this week is a good matchup. And I think next week next 3 weeks for Walker is good. Parramatta, Dolphins, and then the West Tigers. So I think ideally you'd probably just hold on to him in addition to Hynes. But if he's your ticket, then yeah, I'd probably say probably an okay move as well. This is a good point from Andrew G about Plath that, he'll probably be playing 80 minutes at hooker due to the Jeremy Marshall-King injury. So on JMK, we haven't spoken about hookers yet, but he'll be out for 8 to 10 weeks. And so either probably, Max Plath or maybe Ray Stone might play at hooker. One thing also just quickly, just to add further to the argument about Sam Walker and Hughes and not selling them to Hynes. So I looked at the scores that each of these guys have had versus their opposition this week since 2021. So Hynes versus the Titans, he's gone 55, 96, 82, 51, 73, and that's most recent to least recent. Sam Walker against the Dragons, 172, 138, 52, 76, 125. So Sam Walker's got 3 tons versus the Dragons, so seems to like playing them. Hughes, 87, 103, 123. Again, I'm building up some narratives here, probably more, maybe not necessarily biased, but my narrative is that I'm probably not going to get Hynes this week, and I was trying to find some stats to help justify it. I just looked at some of the recent scores, and I thought, I'll take Sam Walker's 172 if Hynes gets 55 versus the Titans. But anyway, that's just me trying to, the old confirmation bias. But that's where my head's at the moment. I think the stats seem to suggest that Titans isn't maybe as amazing as a matchup as it looks on paper, and I think the matchups maybe for Sam Walker and Hughes are arguably better. Question on Cleary, just because I haven't really got Cleary here, but do you take the bullet and bring Cleary in round 20 instead of picking up Hynes and taking Penrith have an amazing draw and run home? I wouldn't probably get Cleary instead of Hynes. I would, the Sharks draw is really good for the rest of the season, so I definitely do think that Nico will be in my team by round 19. Cleary, I'm probably less certain on, just because Cleary will be coming. I know the run is really good, but he's coming back from another hamstring injury. It's troubled him all season. He's only played 5 games this season, 4 games in the 80 minutes. He hasn't had the most consistent of seasons. So I think even if Cleary comes back, I'd probably want to see at least 1 game. He's got 172 break-even Cleary. I'll probably give him at least 1 week just because it's a hamstring injury, and I'd want to get comfort that at least for 1 week he's okay. Speaking of hookers, so Nicodemus could spend time at hooker. Yep, that is for sure a possibility. So on dummy halves, I know a few people have got hooker issues this week, so I'm hands included in that. I've got Harry Grant, who's not been named again this week, and he's going to miss round 19. So look, I'll probably have to make a trade there now, I think, but probably not selling Grant. And then of course, people who've got Jeremy Marshall-King, he is out for 8 to 10 weeks. So absolutely, I think is a very easy sell in people's eyes. And he's 546k, so at least there's a bit of value. So I guess the question is who's the best hooker replacement for JMK? On Grant quickly, I think Grant has been actually quite disappointing this season, just compared to the standards we know we get from him. A 64 average, he's missing a few games. It's I really need him to go big in the run home. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have been a great hold for me, because I've had him since round 1. and probably won't sell him at all. The ones that stand out for me at hooker, Damien Cook, Reid Marnie, Connor Watson, Api Coruscant, and Blake Brayley. Quickly on Blake Brayley, I think he's probably the best at the cheaper price, $506K. So he's obviously got a great draw, as outlined previously with the Sharks. 57 average, 62 for the run for the last 3 rounds, and a relatively low break even at 29. He feels like he'll be a nice steady pick for if you want to try to minimize how much money you spend at hooker. I think the 2 main replacements for Marshall King based on the trades at the moment looks to be Damien Cook and Reid Marnie. So yeah, Jeremy Marshall King, the most popular trade is Marshall King to Damien Cook. After that, it's Reid Marnie. So people at the moment are prioritizing Damien Cook over Reid Marnie. I imagine a lot of that is due to the round 19 coverage. And the next 3 weeks do look really good for Damien Cook. Now, Reid Marnie, is he actually 615K? I'm just going to double check that because I want to make sure that I haven't stuffed that up. Okay, yep, he is 615K. So, yeah, look, Reid Marnie's actually been pretty good all season long. Good at a niggle, but also just good for Supercoach as well. Season average of 66, 3-round average of 65 as well. Scored a try. He's only scored 2 tries as well all season. So, most of his stats are coming from base. So, he's got a base stat average of 48 this year. Eye test wise, I do prefer Cook. I think Cook has just been on a much better run and for a longer period of time. Well, he's got a 5-round average of 90 and a 3-round average of 89. So I think like since round 11, he's gone 86, 96, 61, 95, and 111. He's scored 3 tries in that period of time as well. It just looks to me like Cook's, like the shackles have been kind of unleashed on him. Like he's just like I think ever since probably Demetrio left and the Wayne Bennett news came, and then him also going to the Dragons has been confirmed. I feel like he's just been playing with freedom. So I think for sure I would take Cook over Reid Marnie. I think he's just more likely, in my opinion, to outscore him for the rest of the year. One thing as well with the Rabbitohs, I should say. So there's actually 2 teams I think that meet this criteria now. I think it's the Titans and the Rabbitohs. They don't have a bye for the rest of the season. So if you buy Damien Cook, apart from maybe a rest in round 27, there's a chance that you just have them for every game. Maybe there's a risk of Mamazelis coming in towards the back end of the season as they transition. But right now, I do prefer Damien Cook, and he does have the round 19 cover. I just think attacking stat-wise, he's more likely to give you more attacking stats than Reid Marnie. Coruscant's a little bit more expensive at 649K compared to Reid Marnie. I would still probably take Coruscant over Reid Marnie as well. I will also mention that I'm pretty biased against Reid Marnie just because I've had him in the past and he's never really been great for me. So, yeah, I'll just preface that as well if it seems like I'm a bit biased. Like Coruscant, I like the fact that he's goal kicking. He also doesn't have a bye until round 26. And the next couple of weeks are tough with Melbourne and then the Sharks. But then it's a pretty good run overall for the West Tigers until the end of the season. So I think Coruscant with the goal kicking, I do quite like him. And I think his low scores, he's probably got a lower floor than Reid Marnie, but he scored 133 only a couple of weeks ago. And I think, again, eye test wise, I probably prefer what I've seen from him compared to Reid Marnie. I'd actually prefer Coruscant to Damien Cook as well. One, just the price saving. I think you can save like 50k, but also you get the goal kicking. So I think Coruscant for me still, I know he scored a low score last week, but that did include a sin bin. So he was off the field for 10 minutes, which would have hurt his base stats. And he obviously had like the -10 from the sin bin. But prior to that, we're looking at 133, 58, 75, 66, 78. Like it was a good run that Coruscant was on. So I think last week you can probably look at as a bit of a write-off. And I think he's still probably the one I'd be looking to get. Cook maybe would be second because they both cover round 19. And then you've got Reid Marnie probably third. Brayley probably fourth. And that's more specifically if you want the round 19 cover. Quickly should mention Connor Watson because he's been named, I believe, again to start at hooker. He will miss round 19, but he probably will back up in round 20 because he has a limited role off the bench for the Blues. He's a bit more expensive at 675k, but he's actually been really good when he's played 80-minute games as well. I will address this one question, which was, is it worth having 2 gun hookers, i.e. Coruscant and Grant, or is it better to trade one of them down and use that money elsewhere? I mean, if you look at this table here, like these are the highest averaging hookers for the season. 67, 66, 65, 64, 57. Like the highest averaging dummy half isn't going more than 70. I do think that if you're going to spend like 650k, you can probably get 10 centers averaging above 67 this year. So for sure, I do think that hooker is not a position that I'd be wanting to reserve week in, week out. I would rather have that in fullback, centers, halves, maybe even a back rower, but probably not dummy half. So I do think it's better to just stick with one hooker and maybe just have someone at backup who's cheaper that you can play. Maybe a Jaden Brayley, he's in the 300s. If you're looking to really go down in price, you can go. Jake Simpkin has been named again to start. He's 236k, scored about 47 and 40 last couple of weeks. You got Matt Arthur coming off the bench for the Eels, maybe Brendan Hands, and then maybe if you're like a Harry Grant owner, you could consider like a Bronson Garlick, who's like a bit of a handcuff. So it's like any week that Grant isn't playing, Garlick will play in hooker. So you've guaranteed to get someone from the Melbourne Storm as your hooker, except when the Melbourne Storm don't have any more buys after round 19. So I actually don't even hate that play as well. You can get Garlick versus the West Tigers. But yes, that's how I'd probably rank. Well, in terms of ranking, yeah, probably if I had to rank, like let's exclude Harry Grant because he's not been named this week. If you're selling Jeremy Marshall-King this week and you can trade to anyone, Coruscant probably number 1, Cook number 2, probably Watson number 3, Reid Marnie 4, and then Blake Brayley 5. It's probably my ranking of them. Fullback options. I haven't actually got a specific slide on fullbacks, but I can touch on them very briefly. Thinking of what other stuff do we need to talk about. I'll skip back rolls for a bit. Wade Egan. No, I'm not keen on Wade Egan at all. What's my plan at hooker? I'll get to that maybe more in my specific team trades and what I'm looking at doing. Very quickly, someone was asking about fullbacks. That was Shifter Pod. So 3. I mean, Teddy, I would have to say is probably if you haven't got Teddy at this point in time, I know earlier in the stream chat people were complaining about CNK. I will be if I was a CNK owner, it's not been great the last couple of weeks. What is he? He's 631k with 139 break even versus the Dogs, who have been good defensively. Look, it's not ideal, but because he doesn't even play round 19 and Teddy's got the Dragons, I think you sell, to be honest. I think it's not been good, and I do think that with Tamara Martin in the team, it does impact his scores a little bit. So, I think Nickel Kluxard, just to, at least you're selling him at above 600k, I'd probably be selling, and ideally what I'd be doing if you're in that position is like, because you need 300k to get from CNK to Teddy, you're probably having to do something like either enough, maybe you're nothing like a second rower, or you go Manu down to like maybe a Koula that frees up like 200k. If you've got enough other name money in the bank, then maybe you can make that particular upgrade. No Reece Robson. I just haven't really considered him. I probably should have actually considered him, to be honest, but I just haven't considered him for the time being, just because he will play Origin, so he's going to miss out on next week. Maybe one to evaluate again post Origin. But to be fair, Reece Robson has actually been really good this season as well, averaging 66. So on CNK, I do think he's a sell. David K saying, is it time for me to move Drinkwater on? So Drinkwater did get Sinbin last week, which did hurt his score. He's got Manly this week, which I don't think Manly at home is the worst matchup. It's a 90 break even. I guess it all comes down to, again, if you already have Teddy, I don't think you need to force a move, because even if you wanted to sell to Latrell, who's got a better matchup this week versus Parramatta, he'll miss round 19 and could get a rest maybe in round 20. Turbo coming back in at centre, probably not ideal. Ponga coming back from his first game from a foot injury with a really high break even. I think it probably, David K, comes down to who have you not got. If you've not got Teddy, then I think, just get Teddy. If you've already got Teddy, then I probably do think that you don't need to rush it in. Shifterpod saying he's thinking of Nickel Kluxard to Keanu Kini. So Keanu Kini actually, could be a worthwhile shout if you are looking at maybe moving on a Drinkwater or a CNK. So he's got a negative 49 break even, so he will make some good money. And he's got the Sharks this week, which isn't ideal, but Parramatta in round 19, I do think is a great matchup for him. So in a bye week, that's going to be quite tricky. At least you've got a player who you know should have good potential for scoring big points. And the Titans are definitely on the up as well. So I do think Kini, if you're looking at a CNK replacement and maybe you can't, like he could be maybe be a bridge up to Teddy, for example. You might go CNK to Kini. He's got a negative 49 break even. If he continues to average like 70s in the next couple of weeks, he'll get up close to like high 700, 800 Ks. And then maybe you can make a switch to Teddy after that. I don't hate that actually as a play, potentially. If you're looking to sell CNK and you don't have the funds straight away to get to Teddy, maybe you're looking at doing one extra trade, but you're at least getting someone who covers round 19. On Ponga and Turbo, I know there's a bit of chat about looking to trade them in particular Ponga. I'm not too keen on trading in either of the two this week just because they probably both will cover round 19 now. I don't think Turbo will get New South Wales spot. I doubt New South Wales will change a winning team. And I do think that Ponga is not going to play game 3 for Queensland as well. But happy to see how they both come back and return this week. Neither of them have got like absolute crazy good matchups, so I think you can afford to wait a little bit. Wayne Mulligan is saying that Kini won't play anymore next week with Jaden Campbell back. I think it's more likely that Campbell's on the bench because he's had that role earlier in the season. I know he's been playing very well, but I think Keanu Kini is more likely going to stay in his position at fullback, and Campbell maybe goes on the bench. Also, Campbell, is he a certainty to come back next week? Because he picked up that hand injury in round 16, and from what I heard, it was a 4-week injury, so he would miss round 17, 18, 19, and 20. So I still think Keanu Kini's safe, and I don't think Campbell's going to affect him next week. Titans run is putrid outside of 19. It is. That's why Keanu Kini is definitely a short-term option. He's not a long-term option, for sure. But yeah, I wanted to quickly touch on Ponga and Turbo. I think they could be very tempting, but not for me this week. Probably one to consider. Maybe next week. Yes, Campbell is back next week. Okay. Look, if you're concerned about that risk, then yeah, obviously don't get Kini in that sense. Just seeing, so 2RFs, I haven't really spoken about 2RFs that much, but there hasn't been that many questions about back rows at the moment. So I've said a lot about 2RFs in the last couple of streams about like, how many do you want to reserve and all that kind of stuff. So I think, look, the top 4 second rows that I can think of for the rest of the season would be Fafita, Katoa, Angus Crichton, and Olukwatu. So Olukwatu is in the top 10 most traded in players. He is number 6 at the moment. I think, look, Olukwatu, he is in my top 4. Yes, he doesn't cover round 19, but he's playing a bench role for New South Wales. So he's not playing huge minutes, so he's definitely a good chance at backing up, I think, in round 20. And he's got Titans in that particular week as well. So misses round 19, but I think at 599k, you're probably getting him at his cheapest. He's got a break even of 58. So I think Olukwatu is a very good trade in. I don't know if people are doing Kai Pearce-Paul to Olukwatu, but look, Kai Pearce-Paul is becoming a bit of a problem. Only the 34 points, playing the full 80 minutes last week. Dylan Lucas is back on the bench as well. With Kai Pearce-Paul, I'm probably just going to be holding him until round 19. Round 20, the Knights do play. So I reckon I know people are saying they're going to sell KPP in round 20 as soon as round 19 is over. But I think when people get to round 20, they're going to realize I'm missing like so many players, and I just don't have the luxury of selling a warm body. So I think Kai Pearce-Paul will stay for me until round 21, and then I'll probably sell him. But yeah, look, if you're okay for round 19 and you're doing Kai Pearce-Paul to Hamali Olukwatu, and Olukwatu is one of your top 3 or 4 second rowers, then I think, you know what, it's probably not that bad of a move, to be honest. Because I think Olukwatu, if you take out that game where he scored like 13, I think his season average is more like closer to 70. So he is definitely a keeper in back row. In terms of the round 19 specific back rowers, your best bets are probably Nikora, Kolomatangi, and Bryce Cartwright. I think Kolomatangi, given that he's the most expensive out of the 3 now, probably ranks him a little bit behind for me. I mean, originally a few weeks ago, I was saying Kolomatangi over Bryce Cartwright. I think he's kind of outscored him, but Bryce Cartwright has been good. I think Nikora for me is still probably the number 1 out of those 3, just because of an amazing run that he's got for the rest of the season. And he'll be a little bit more highly owned. If you're looking purely for just the pod, I think Bryce Cartwright is probably the perfect back row pod who covers round 19. If Pappy plays, do I expect him to goal kick? Yes. I think if Pappy plays, I'd expect goal kicking. Yep. Who kicks goals with Jaden Campbell out? I think for the Titans, it would be Brian Kelly. I think Brian Kelly would goal kick, wouldn't it? Do you reckon Kaipis will actually start this week? I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back on the bench, to be honest. But yeah, anyway. Who would I trade for CNK because I'm scared Kini isn't going to keep his role? I think if you've got duels, just trade to a center. You can trade to like Marzhew or something like that. Ponga goal kicking, we haven't actually got news about that, so that's probably one that we need to figure out. We'll get some news from Barry Tui in the next couple of days, but I would think that Ponga goal kicks. There's nothing to suggest that he won't, I guess, but yeah, one to monitor. Quickly going on to captaincy, because I realized we've been going for like an hour, 6 minutes already. So captaincy this week, again, it feels pretty straightforward in my head. So probably going to be looking at captaining one of the Roosters players this week versus the Dragons. So Teddy stands out, like just how consistent he's been. I think he's probably going to be my default captain this week. I think the alternative for me would be Sam Walker, because the Dragons do seem to have a tendency to concede points to opposition halfbacks. So Teddy or Walker for me, but I think at the moment, as it stands, probably will be going Teddy as captain. I think a couple of pod options, if you at fullback specifically, would be Latrell. So Parramatta, I think if you've held on to Latrell, it's tricky because you can't do both of Latrell and Teddy. I would probably prefer this week. I'd probably prefer Latrell just because of the goal kicking. But Latrell maybe just edges it for me. Parramatta have been the third worst at defending points to opposition fullbacks. So I think Latrell just edges Teddy for me. But if you've got one of the two, I understand also why you'd want to go maybe Teddy captain as a safe play. Just going to have a quick look here as well on SuperCoach Plus. What are the current captaincy stats as well? So if I look at SuperCoaches in the top 5% of players, currently the most popular VC is Nicho Hynes at 25% and Jerome Hughes at 25%. I think that makes complete sense given the matchups. Hynes is home to the Titans and Hughes is home to the away to the West Tigers. So I think they make complete sense as your halfback VCs. In terms of captaincy percentages, Teddy is well in front, 68%. Excuse me. Yeah, Teddy's 68% captained by the top 5% of SuperCoaches at the moment. So that's pretty big ownership to go against. I think Latrell at the moment is 1.5%. So he's definitely the pod play, Latrell, but Teddy's probably the safe option. That's probably where I'm going to be landing. So for me, Teddy, I think will be my captain. Pod options would be the likes of Hughes. Sorry, not Hughes. Pod options would be Latrell, maybe a Carraz home to the Warriors, who have been the 7th worst at defending points to opposition centre wings. Eli Katoa, West Tigers have actually been 2nd worst against opposition back rowers. And then Drinkwater. So Davey K, I know you were thinking about moving on Drinkwater. I think the matchup's pretty good. Manly have been 4th worst at defending points to opposition fullbacks. Playing at home, I think Drinky is actually not that bad at a play this week. But Edwards captain Mike Kachowski is asking, who are Penrith playing? Penrith are playing... mind blank. I'm sure Edwards is a good captain option because he's goal kicking. Broncos away. I think he's a fine captain option, but again, it means that you can't put it on Teddy. I think I'd prefer Teddy in that instance. Playing at home, he's the one who I'd be preferring. Tigers are going to turn up at Leichhardt. Don't think the Storm get them by much. They could, but I look at Jerome Hughes. He's in such good form. For sure, he'd be high up on my... If I had Hughes, he would be my VC and Teddy would be my captain. I don't have Hynes or I don't have Hughes, and I can't do captain Walker and I can't do VC Walker and Teddy. They're the same game. So at the moment, I haven't even got him on this graphic here, but Fafita against the Sharks, I've got Fafita as maybe a safe VC, or I might do someone like a Dillbags against the Rabbitohs as a VC early in the week, or I go Carraz. That's probably where I'm thinking at the moment. But yeah, for me, it would have to take a really big score, I think, to take the captaincy off of Teddy. I did originally think about Garrick as well, so I might go Garrick as a VC just because the Cowboys can be leaky as well. Actually, Will Shaw's asking, do you have Cowboys points conceded to right centers? Thinking of taking a punt on Garrick. I don't specifically have the right center scores, but I believe the Cowboys were like 10th for conceding points to opposition centers, so nothing like crazy. Let's have a look here. Cowboys are actually 12th, so again, that doesn't split it by left or right centers, but doesn't seem like it's a crazy good matchup. Do you think VC Latrell, Captain Hughes is good? I have Young to captain maybe. What do you think? I do think I'd prefer going... If you're going VC Latrell, Hughes looks good, but I think I'd be happier captaining... Would I want to go captain Hughes or Dom Young? Probably Hughes, actually, to be honest. I think Hughes is less likely to go 150, but less likely to go 30, if that makes sense. Raging Bull, $10. Oh, amazing. Coffee on me tomorrow. Thanks for the effort you put into this. Oh, Raging Bull, I appreciate that. That is very, very generous of you. And yeah, guys, turns out, so I've always been a flat white guy, but I started having cappuccinos recently. And you know what? I think I'm getting closer and closer to enjoying the cappuccino, not the flat white. There you go. How did you know your coffee choice could change? All right, guys, I think I will quickly get onto my team, but in the period I do that to change it. Please do give the stream a like if you have enjoyed it so far. It does help me out a lot. So my team. So someone actually was asking in the chat earlier, how many do I have for round 19? So at the moment, I've got one. You know what? Fafita. We didn't really talk about Fafita, but I think there is definitely a risk that Fafita does not play round 19 for us. I think there's a chance that he'll be called in by Queensland. So for the time being, I'm not going to include him in my numbers. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 excluding Fafita, 10 with Fafita, 11 if you include Fletcher Sharp, but let's not maybe go Fletcher Sharp at the moment. So at the moment, realistically, I think I'm on 9. So it's not looking great. It's not looking ideal. This is why I'm also leaning a little bit more towards selling Manu as well, just to get someone for round 19, because I think I'm looking a little bit short for round 19 as it currently stands. So, sorry, let me give my throat a break. So, what I'm thinking of doing for my team next week... Oh, for this week, sorry. So I think I'll have to make 2 trades, unfortunately. I would have loved to have kept saving trades where possible. I'm on 14 trades at the moment, which I don't think is terrible, but not ideal. Obviously, more trades would be better. But haven't really spoken about him at all yet this stream, but like Grant being out is very frustrating. So and Joey Lussick again hasn't been named. So I think what I'm probably going to do is, last week I copped an AE from Joe Chan, but last week was a mini bye week, so I thought it was okay. This week, when we've got a full contingent, I don't really want to cop another AE from Joe Chan. Like he's just scoring 12s. It's quite frustrating. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably make a trade just so I don't have to cop an AE this week. Which, I mean, let me know what you guys think. Like, if I trade to a cheaper hooker, like maybe down from Joey Lussick, I might get 45 points. Is the 30 points that I'll gain compared to copying the AE of 19 from Joe Chan or 12 from Joe Chan, is it worth a trade? On face value, yeah, making a trade just to get 30 points probably doesn't seem worth it, but the play I'm thinking will probably play around 19, so it makes me think that maybe it's a little bit more worth it, because I'm getting maybe then 70 to 80 points extra, and also hopefully back up every time Grant is out. So what I'm thinking at the moment is Lussick will probably get... I'm not going to trade Grant. Like, if I've got Grant, I'm keeping him. So I'm thinking of trading Lussick out, and I want to really minimize how much I spend, to be honest. So the 2 that come to mind who play round 19 are probably Bronson Garlick, who he's dual, so he's hooker back row, so he might come in handy down the track. So he's 292k. He'll be a bit of a handcuff for every time Grant is out. I've got Bronson Garlick there. Or if I really want to save more money, I was thinking of someone like, playing around 19, Jake Simkin. So Jake Simkin from the Sea Eagles. So he could eventually nuff out, which isn't ideal, but he's cheap, which is good. He's been playing okay minutes. He's been scoring kind of 40s. It's not fantastic, but thinking maybe him as an option. We haven't really heard much on Lachlan Croker. That really does seem to be some prolonged issue. So I do think Simpkin will be safe for round 19. So at the moment, my first thought was maybe going Simpkin from Lussick. That gives me Simpkin for this week. If I look at Simpkin's scores in the last couple of weeks, what are we looking at here? We're looking at a 45 and a 47. And earlier in the season, he scored 68 versus the Dogs. So Cowboys this week, I think, is fine. Cowboys have actually been pretty weak through the middle this season. Then it's Newcastle in the bye. Then it's he covers round 20 as well. So I'm hoping if he at least gives me round 19 and 20, that's really all I need from him. And maybe round 27 potentially, if I'm assuming Grant maybe gets a rest. Oh yes, sorry, you're right. Sorry guys, yeah, Garlic doesn't play round 19. Sorry, thank you for correcting me. Yes, okay. So that probably leans me towards going Simpkin. So I think Simpkin would be just who I trade in. It frees up 40k. It's not great, but look, it gives me some cover at hooker. And then I probably will. I think I'm leaning towards selling Manu just because I can sit Kai Pearce-Paul this week. And so if I didn't trade Manu, my reserves would be Dom Young, Galvin, Sam Walker, and Crichton, which, to be fair, is actually looking pretty decent. So what I could do this week, I don't have to sell Manu, but if I want to get numbers in for next week, Manu, I'm probably thinking at the moment I might go Marzhew. So Marzhew is probably who I'm thinking at the moment. So if you filter by, just chasing last week's points, Greg Marzhew, 116. To be fair, I own Marzhew for all of last season except round 1 and 2. He was very good to me. So I've got a certain positive bias to Marzhew. But that frees up some money. So I've got 180k then in the bank. So the reason I like that is that gives me enough money maybe if I want to eventually get rid of Fletcher Sharp. That gives me a bit more to play with. If I do those particular moves, let's assume I do those moves, then that adds 2 players to my round 13 numbers. So what we said that they were on 10, including Fafita. So let's exclude him. Let's make it 9. So that gets me up to 11. And then what I would do next week is probably Sam Walker to Hynes. So that gets me to 12. So then I'd be on 12 for round 19, which is 1 short, but Fletcher Sharp, if he plays on the bench, then I've got 13. Fine. So I might just be able to scrape 13. If not, I should have a good 12 covering most of the bases. I'll have the likes of Hynes, I'll have Cody, I'll have Galvin, I'll have Britton Nickera, I'll have Fafita if he plays. So I think I'll be covering most of the bases except for maybe Coruscant. That's probably the big one that I would be missing. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment with my trades. In terms of sit v starts, if I did that, I'll have to make a decision. Probably what I would most likely do is sit Galvin. So Galvin has got Melbourne, so it's a tougher matchup. So maybe I'd be happy to sit Galvin. And then I'd play Angus, I'd play Sam Walker. I'd definitely play Britton Nickera versus the Titans. So my back row would definitely stay as is. I'd maybe sit Terrell May for Samuel Lafinu because Terrell May might just go back to crazy low minutes. And then I'd probably look to play Marzhew this week if I've traded him in. So what I'd probably do is, chuck the reserve on Greg. Where is he? There he is. Isaka's on the bye. But that way my centers are still looking pretty decent, pretty healthy. Captain Teddy I think's fine. Maybe VC Dillbags, or I might even VC Cody Walker. But so it means I've got some depth. I can sit Terrell May, I can sit Kai Pearce-Paul, I can sit Galvin and Fletcher Sharp. So that might be what I end up doing this week. But obviously still to be confirmed. But could be the 2 trades for me this week. If you traded Sharp and Chan, your AE will probably outscore Simpkin. That is definitely a good point. I guess if I traded Fletcher Sharp instead, he does still have a negative break even, so he still can make some money. Joe Chan, he's now gone down to 204k. There's not many guys who will eventually get round 19 cover. So I might have to think about that a little bit because I understand it. But Joe Chan, he's bottom dollar now. I'm just really hoping he just eventually drops out of the team. But look, remains to be seen. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking for trades at the moment. we've been going for 1 hour 20 minutes, so I think I'm probably going to wrap up the stream there, guys. So I just wanted to double check. Can you guys actually? Yeah, okay, cool. I think that's what my team's going to be. I think I'm probably going to end the stream there. I'll try to get to some more Q&A during the week, but apologies, just the stream's been going on for quite a while, so I probably won't be able to talk to too many questions. Apologies, but we'll try to get to some later in the week. But keep hitting me up on the socials, and I'll try to get to you. But thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you all in the next stream. Please do give the stream a like on the way out. There's 280 of you watching, which is awesome. Really appreciate all the support. We'll catch you all in the next stream, probably on Sunday, but I'll try to get to some more Q&A during the week. Catch you all, and have a good rest of your evening. Cheers.